Hi, I'm Paris, and it's been 5 years now that I've been waiting for my chance to return to try and climb Guadalupe Peak. It's the highest point in Texas. It's a mountain way out west on the New Mexico border, and 5 years ago I tried with my family to climb it, and we got to a point that we thought was about halfway up, and it just wasn't going to happen that day. But one thing I noticed and really wished for as we were climbing, as we were watching people climb faster than us and come whipping on down the mountain after they had reached the top, was a pair of trekking poles. Like these. A company called EvoCrest must have somehow known that my dream was to go back and climb that mountain, and this might make it more likely that I would get to the top, so they sent me this pair to try out. As you can see, these trekking poles look a little broken in, but not broken. With these, I was able to get to the top of Guadalupe Peak, and because of these, I think I was actually able to make it down off the mountain, which almost didn't happen. Let me tell you a little more about that and show you what these could do for me.
Epic Review Guys.
So here's the shortened version of the story. If you'd like the full-length version, I'll put that video up on my personal channel, Paris TX, and I'll link to it at the end of the video. But this trip I've been planning ever since EvoCrest sent me these a few months ago, but it had been delayed, other family things had happened, and finally I decided if I put it off any longer, it'd start getting really hot like summers in Texas are, I wouldn't climb. So this weekend, pretty much no matter what happened, I decided I was going to go. So I started climbing about 8:30, checked in first at the visitor center, so they knew that I was there and going to be up on the mountain. There were probably about 20-25 people there getting ready to climb. What I should have made note of is that in that building, the only people my age were actually sitting on the other side of the counter. I managed to lose some weight since the start of the year, been going to the gym, got over my fear of the Stairmaster, so I thought I could do this. And I could do it. I did get up to the top. It's the second half of the story that got a little frightening. So the first hiking rule that I broke was don't hike alone. Now if you hike alone and you have no problems, then it usually ends up without there being any issue, but some problems did happen later on. Now let me tell you about the trekking poles. I didn't use these when I first started climbing. It was fairly easy trail, but as the grade picked up and as there were lots of steps and bouldery areas and walking on loose stones, I did take them out and I set them up, and they have two adjustment sections. The lower section here, boy, it's really gotten some dirt on it and I have not cleaned it off. And there are markings on it, so you can set it to the next time you go out after collapsing it, you can set it to the height that you like, and you can set the other one to the same height so you don't have that weird feeling of one being an inch taller than the other. So it's as easy as that to lock them into place. Cork handles were nice too, no slip, even though I had suntan lotion on my hands. I discolored it a little, but still worked very well. And by being able to use the trekking poles to balance myself while going up the trail in areas where the rocks tended to roll underfoot and so forth, this helped so much. It reduced the chance that I would trip over something and sprain something. Again, something you got to watch out for, hiking by yourself. And it relieved some of the stress on my legs and put some of it into my arms, which I did feel a couple hours later. Round trip to the top and back for most people is estimated to take 6 to 8 hours, and I was expecting I can probably do it in 8 hours time. However, the further up the mountain I got, and especially once I got to the point that I had made it with my family 5 years ago and got past that and realized that wasn't even halfway, that was more like a third of the way. After 4 hours of climbing, I come around the bend and see I have this much further to go. It's like I haven't even started yet. I did really doubt whether I would be able to make it all the way to the top, and these did help keep me going. I pushed on, and it took me about 6.5 hours to get to the top. And here's a video clip from the top of me with my very raspy voice because my throat was so dry, giving a quick review to these trekking poles. Thanks so much to the folks at EvoCrest for sending me these trekking poles to try out. They got me to the top of Guadalupe Peak. 8,700 something feet, the tallest point in Texas. Now, if they will just get me back down off this mountain. It took me 6 hours to get up here. I should get heading down soon, or I'm going to be walking in the dark. Now, the only issue I had was one of the little rubber things on the end came off fairly early on between some rocks, and I wasn't even at that point with enough energy to go crawling around on my hands and knees and try to find the other little rubber piece. So those may fall off. They're just held on by pressure. If there was a system where they screwed on, they were attached to some solid plastic that screwed onto the end of the pole, I could see that lasting a little longer. Straps came in handy more than once, not falling down the side of the mountain. And I really like these cork handles. Whether I was sweating, whether I had sunscreen on my hands, they didn't slip at all. They were very nice. They absorbed whatever it was, I guess, and gave me a good grip. Spent about 40 minutes on the top, and about 3:40 in the afternoon, started back down. There were still other people coming up for a while, but all the people who had been at the top when I was there all came down and passed me because I was tired. And as I had expected was going to happen, my knees were loudly complaining. The times I've climbed mountains previously, it's always coming down, it's always the knees. That's the battle to just get through that pain. So I was exhausted, kind of stumbling. People kept passing me by, saying, hey, see you at the bottom and stuff. And I got to thinking after a couple hours, and I wasn't even halfway down yet, yeah, I hope I do see you at the bottom. The next thing that happened was I started to show some signs of pretty severe dehydration. Now, I had brought several bottles of water with me, but not as much as they had recommended, and not as many as you might need for a 12-hour day trip, which this was quickly turning into. I was thinking I would be 6 to 8 hours, but the way things were going, if I made it all the way down, because I was having a really hard time, it was going to be about 12 hours I would have spent on the mountain. So I was getting lightheaded. My heart rate was actually going really fast, which in my bit of a stupor was confusing me. I was wondering, why is my heart going so fast when I'm just going downhill, and I'm not going downhill very quickly? Well, it turned out when I got back to the hotel and could Google some results of the symptoms, I had really severe dehydration, almost bordering on getting a little bit shocky because my blood volume was so low. My heart was pumping so fast to keep it going, so even a little bit of physical exertion was making me feel like I was climbing up a mountain rather than down, which worried me a great deal, and I started to really feel poorly, and I still had about a third of the way to go, and I was really wondering if I was going to get down there before it got dark, or if I was going to make it down there on my own. There were some other things that happened. I'll leave that for the long version of the story. I'll condense it here to say that just about when I was about to just sit down on the side of the trail and say, whatever's going to happen, hiker came down, one of the last people who must have been coming off the mountain, one of those speed walker type who go up and come back down in like 2 hours. And I asked him if he had some water that he could spare. He was just wearing a vest, so I didn't even know if he had any, but he had apparently these inflatable water bottles built into it. And I guess I didn't look so good because he actually gave me the rest of his water. About 8 ounces, 1 container's worth, he gave that to me. And that saved me. I still felt so tired, but my heart wasn't racing quite as much. And with the trekking poles to help me so I wouldn't stumble over a ledge and to help me get over the big rocks, because if I was just doing it on my own 2 legs with my, at that point, very poor balance, I don't know, I would have fallen and had a hard time getting up. So these trekking poles allowed me to have 4 points of contact with the earth, and slowly, because it did end up taking me 12 full hours from when I started to as it was just getting almost completely black to come back into the parking lot, which fortunately had running water, so I was able to have some water, get some extra to take for the hour's drive over to the next nearest town to my hotel. Made it through a very painful night of everything, aching and recovering from that severe dehydration. And I relearned the second cardinal rule of hiking, which is bring as much water as you might possibly need, not as little as you think you can get away with, because there may not be an angel that appears, which is pretty much what that last guy hiking down the mountain passing me by who stopped to give me the rest of his water was. I doubt he'll run across this video, but just in case, I owe you more than thanks, because you have no idea how close I was to not making it down off that mountain that night. Also, many thanks to EvoCrest for this pair of trekking poles, also very key in getting me down off the mountain. Unlike my backpack, which I consider just leaving by a tree to make it easier to get down, these are so lightweight they're carbon fiber, and a variety of tips depending on which type of surface you're going to be climbing on, and a carry bag to get them to your climb. This pair goes for about $60. You can find out more about it at the link down below this video, and I'll be around to see you on the next review.
Epic